The most widely published book in human history reveals that we are created in the image of God. Throughout our human journey, each encounter is an opportunity to see the shared humanity in ourselves and others. Regardless of one's views on religion, each experience and each story weaves us together towards a common path. A path of transformation, a process of growth and understanding, a recognition that, at our core, we share a common destiny. What does the search for truth really mean in our lives? How can we find a sense of unity in a world so diverse and divided? As we reflect on these questions, we start to uncover a fundamental connection that binds us all beyond our differences. Welcome to Created in the Image of God, Building Vibrant Communities, with our host, Wade Franson. Today's episode is Strength of Scars.
Good morning, everyone. Wade Franson here with another episode of Created in the Image of God. This is episode 229, airing on March 15th. Today we have Avonley Lightstone, and she has an amazing story, just an amazing story full of drama, frankly, and trauma, but also inspiration and hope. I'm going to let Avonley tell her own story, starting with her humble origins and everything she went through. So we'll jump right into it. Welcome to the studio, Avonley.
Thank you so much for having me, Wade. It's an honor to be on your show, and I'm just really ecstatic, and this is going to be a great time. I've been
looking forward to I've been looking forward to this ever since we first met. And I know the story. So tell us about your origin, your creation story. Who were your parents? Where did this all start?
Yeah, so my story started at a very young age, at the age of 3. I was living in India. My family had 9 children, 1 boy, and the rest of us were girls. And at 3 years old, my life completely turned upside down. My mom was cooking food. My siblings were out in school, and my baby sister was with my grandparents. So I was left alone with my mother. And as she was cooking, the sari caught on fire, and she started screaming. And I went to wake up my dad, and he just wouldn't respond. I kept trying to yell for him, like, hey, wake up, mom's in trouble. But he just wouldn't budge. He wouldn't wake up. So I just felt like I needed to do the best thing. And I just went and hugged my mom. And as we were hugging each other, she was trying to push me away. But I wasn't going to let her go. And I just kept holding tight. And even until I started feeling the pain of the fire on my skin, and we were both like burning together. That was really gruesome. And from me screaming is what woke my dad up. And next thing I remember was going to the hospital. And I had to lay there and just kind of heal, just air dry and heal. My mom, however, she was completely burned all over, and she didn't survive. After 3 days, she passed away. And in that moment is when I felt rejection. Is before my mom passed away, I would see my family. They would come and visit me. But after my mom had passed away, my dad stopped showing up to see how I was doing, to see if I was okay, if there was, just nurturing a child that went through fire. Like, it's just, I needed to cope and heal, and my family stopped coming around. And that was the first time I felt rejection and felt alone and really sad. I don't know. It was a few months.
And I don't think you mentioned in this telling, but your father had problems with alcohol, right? And that was part of the reason he wasn't responsive initially.
Yeah. Yes, he was an alcoholic, and I think he just drank a lot of his problem away. And when the accident happened and my mom passed away, I think there was a lot of guilt behind what had happened, and he just couldn't bear to see me, and just the scars and the wounds that I was trying to heal from. I believe that's kind of what kept him um, not wanting to come around, because like he was at fault. Well, it took me a few months for me to like recover, and once I was released, I then was we were Catholics in India, and I remember like my dad was allowing me and my siblings to go pay respects to my mother. Um, and I was in my blue underwear, like Mowgli style, and just bowing to Mother Mary and just paying respects. And after I paid respects to my mother, my dad then takes me to the orphanage to be adopted. So I didn't have any time to see my family, hang out with them, um, just love on them. I didn't have any of that. It was hospital, say your goodbyes, and then gone to the orphanage to be adopted. And that's another time that I felt rejected, and I couldn't comprehend what was happening. I didn't understand what it was I was doing wrong. And all this didn't make sense to me. But I do remember a lot of people do ask me, like, how do you remember such vivid memories? And I think it was during the time I felt rejected, and I was completely alone. That is when I really took in the memories that was happened in India, my family, what happened with the fire. I just took all that in, and I think that imprinted into my soul. And it's really how I was able to have such good memory of those events at such an early age. So yes, after 2 weeks of being in the orphanage by myself, my dad ended up bringing 3 more of my siblings into the orphanage. In the orphanage, it was just getting our us ready for families in America. And we would see families come in from different, like, come in and they would bring gifts, and we're really excited to pick up their children. And visually, that's when we recognize, like, oh, this is what's going to happen. Somebody is going to come for us, and we're going to go and live with them. And we saw like how they treated the kids. They were really happy. The kids left really happy. So we were getting pretty excited when we finally was told that we were going to have a family in America, and that we weren't going to be separated. That two of my siblings would be coming and being adopted into the same family as I was, except for my baby sister. They separated us from her because she was much younger, and it's easier to adopt a baby to a family than it is older children. And so we got separated from her. But fortunately, I was happy to have my 2 other siblings. And we get ready to go to America, and my dad came and picked us up, and we went to New York. And my dad is a cowboy, and I remember like landing in New York, feeling so just feeling so happy, like, wow, this is rich area, and just there was not a lot of Indians there. Brown people, there was a lot more like mix of ethnicities. And so that was kind of like a culture shock. It was very clean atmosphere, at least for me. And I just felt like I was getting dropped into a whole different world that I had never seen, because we didn't have TVs. We didn't have any sort of like idea that there was another like country with different people. It was just taking in.
That new and different world, taking in that completely different, strange circumstance. So, but this was in New York, right? And that's
Yeah.
not where you ended up. So what happened? What happened next?
Yeah. So then we just we caught a plane, flew into Salt Lake. And when we flew into Salt Lake, that is when I ended up meeting my grandparents and one of my sisters, who happens to be the same age as I am, and she was a golden child. So yeah, in my book, you'll start realizing like how my mom kind of shaped her to be that golden child. But she was really sweet. When we were adopted, when I first saw my mother, my sister and I, not the oldest, we just took in our family. We were just accepting, and we just decided like this is our family. We forgot about like we put our families in India aside because we knew that we weren't going to have them anymore. So we accepted our family. We accepted our mom. However, my sister, older sister, was not accepting of my mother. She kept telling her, like, you're not my mother. I want to go back and see my family. And rather than having
How old was your older sister at this point?
she was 9 years old.
9 years. Wow. And you were around 4 at this time, or
No, I had just turned 6.
okay. So you
Yeah,
were in the
so
orphanage for a while before all this happened.
yeah, so like I had to recover, and yeah, it was a little while that
It
I
was a
was
long recovery, and then yeah. So
Mhm.
okay, sorry, just trying to
No,
get
it's okay.
the picture.
Yeah, no, it's okay. But yeah, no, my sister she was not having it. She did not see my mother as her mother, and she wanted to go back to her family. My mom, however, she did not know how to cope with her. And she and it started like triggering her in a way that she just couldn't handle her. So she started abusing her. And she started abusing me. Every time my sister would get out of hand, I would get in trouble. And it was really hard, and because I w- it everything kind of started falling apart when a few months after I was adopted. I struggled in school. We lived in like on a ranching um, home. My parents raised cattle, and I struggled with school because I had dyslexia, and I was getting a lot of things confused, words, shapes, numbers confused with like eights with beads, and I would just get a lot of it confused. And I also came with 8 different dialect, and so that was just a lot. And trying to keep up with our grade level. I was very fortunate to have great teachers that were really patient with me, that wanted to tutor me. When I was failing in my classes, teachers would tell my mother, like, hey, Avonley is struggling with school. She's struggling, and she's kind of getting behind. We need to tutor her. For a little bit, my mom wasn't hesitating in allowing them to tutor me, but eventually she kind of gave in. But before then, she would have me go down in the basement after school and give me more homework to do. But it's not like homework at my grade level, it was beyond my grade level. Um, and it was really frustrating because I couldn't even imagine how to solve some of these problems because she was not willing to like sit there, help me out. So she isolated me, um, and and just started like telling me like, you're not going to come up to eat until you get this work done. And I couldn't get the work done. And so she withheld food from me, and then I would get punished and she would have me sent to my room for 3 days without food or water. My siblings, a couple of my siblings would sneak in food here and there. But yeah, no, it was just like like it was her way of punishing me. And I don't understand what it was. There was times that she was like physically would hurt me. And and I think she just kind of started recognizing that I could tolerate pain easily, because I went through a lot of pain. So I have like this high pain tolerance. So like physically, she didn't physically abuse me as much anymore. So like one time when I was just having fun with my siblings, laughing, and we were just messing around, she took a board that had nails in it and started spanking me. And that was really hard. But she ended up abusing my sister, because my older sister, because my sister just would not, she did not see my mother as her mother. And the more she started abusing my sister, the worse she would get. And my sister would pull her hair. And my mom was kind of clever in the way she punished. And so, like I mentioned, she found out like isolating me was the best form of how it would get to me emotionally. And so she ended up molesting my sister in front of me. And especially during the time she hit puberty. And I remember like feeling so sad and disgusted, thinking like, why would you do that to my sister? And I really took it hard and said, I don't ever want to grow up. We were really good kids, and we were clean. Our rooms were always clean, and she would get triggered by our rooms being really clean, our beds being made, because we learned that in the orphanage, like, hey, get up, make your beds, tidy your space. So we continued that in our home, and it really frustrated our mom. And she would just pull everything out, throw everything on the floor, and tell us, hey, you need to clean your room, it's a mess. And so that was just really frustrating. And there was a lot of mixed signaling that she was like giving us, and it just didn't make sense to us. Like, why would you tell us to keep our rooms clean, and our room is clean, just to destroy it, just to have to clean it? And so it's just a lot of these patterns of how she treated us was just getting out of hand. And it got to the point, like my dad, he was like our safe haven place. He was full of love, kindness, and we soon realized like going out and working on the ranch was our way to cope and be away from the abuse that mom was treating us. And so as we started to go with our dad, my mom started getting jealous, and she started telling my older sister, well, you're doing things with your dad sexually, and you can't go out with your dad. My dad would never do anything like that. He was just a really good person, good man, well known in the community for being a good person, and he deserved to have that recognition, because he really was. But like, it just got to that point where my mom would just take anything good away from us that we enjoyed. If we, like, for a long time, I loved feeding the horses and the dogs, and that was my chore that my dad would give me. She ended up taking that away. because she saw that I was enjoying it. I connected with them and I was being responsible. She took that away. They hired a person that was rough, and like he was rough cowboy. Drink, like he had drinking problems, but he was a really good guy. And he never did anything to us, but eventually my mom said that there was rumors in town that he was messing around with us, and that we shouldn't be hanging around him because we were girls, and we don't want that kind of image. And we assured her like he would never do that to us. He's a really good guy, and he was also her cousin, and so he knows him, and she knows that he wouldn't do anything to us or to harm us. And yeah, so eventually it really emotionally got to me where I was like, well, if everybody's talking about it, I don't want that kind of image, being splattered on me, because that's not how I am, and I don't want it on him. So I ended up.
Well, and this whole aspect of sort of the reputation in the community also had to do with the fact that that your family were members of the LDS Church, right? As well. So that was a very important aspect of this sort of reputational thing. We also didn't really cover, were there other children other than you and your two siblings? And were they, so there were three girls, because you mentioned you had a brother as well, but it was three
Yeah.
girls that were there in this family.
So my
two
parents,
sisters.
yeah. So I was adopted with two other of my biological siblings. My parents adopted 14 children total. They had adopted 3 boys by the time that the rest of us kids were adopted, and they were completely raised. When I had written this book, my older brothers read it and they couldn't believe what was written, the abuse that I went through. And they're like, well, I thought it ended with me. I didn't think it was going on with you guys, so I didn't worry about it. And so there was this pattern where my mom had abused these boys before she even got all these other kids. So the purpose behind her adopting as kids, I don't even know what her purpose was. But she ended up, like, with all the abuse that we were going through, she still ended up adopting 2 more children. And these 2 girls were I was so sad that they were adopting them. I was not happy for them because I was not wanting them to come into this home, because I knew that getting love from my mom was hard enough, because a lot of us was having a hard time receiving any sort of love or attention. And I didn't want these 2 little girls to go through the same thing that we were going through. Even 6 months later, after they were adopted, my younger brother started raping them. And I went and told my mom, knocked on her bedroom door, and she got so upset with me. And she's like, you're not supposed to come into my room. You're not supposed to knock on my door. Like, get out of here. But I was able to let her know, like, hey, my sisters are in trouble. I think this is what's happening. And she's like, well, I'll take care of it. But she never did. And one of my siblings ended up getting urinary tract infection from this instance. And she started peeing in her bed constantly. And my mom wasn't helping her out. She would get really upset with her and then tell her, like, I can't keep doing your laundry. You're going to have to start doing your laundry. So she would tell her to do her laundry in our bathtub. Well, eventually she started having my sister take her bedding that she peed on out in the creek. So she would have her wake up really early in the morning, wash her pee bedding in the creek, even when it was like super cold in winter. And that was just really hard to hear her go through that because it's cold. I know, like hanging up clothes, because I would hang out clothes outside and it would get so cold. Your fingers would get really like frozen. You would run inside to try to get warmed up, but like it'd be frozen and it would hurt and sting. So I kind of had an idea, like a little idea what she was going through, but not as much because like she's washing her clothes in the creek. And yeah, that was happening. My brothers continued to rate them into high school and even into their adult ages. And my mom just never done anything about it.
So, so we're going to take a quick pause and go to a commercial break, which will actually be a video about Avonley's journey and her book. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about what changed then and how this situation ended and what happened next. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more of Avonley Lightstone here on Creating the Image of God.
Avonley Lightstone is an author, speaker, and survivor whose story of resilience began at age 3 when she attempted to save her mother from a house fire. After losing her mother and being placed into an abusive adoptive home, she spent years fighting for safety, identity, and healing. Today, Avonley uses her journey to empower others to confront their pain, break cycles of trauma, and embrace the strength within their scars. Strength of Scars is a raw and powerful memoir about a young girl who survives a tragic house fire, an abusive adoption, and years of silence, and ultimately discovers healing through faith, resilience, and truth. Through gripping storytelling, Avonley reveals how childhood trauma can shape us, how scars can follow us, and how reclaiming your story can lead to freedom. This book is a testament that pain does not define us. It refines us. Strength of Scars by Avonley Lightstone.
Welcome back to Creating the Image of God. I'm your host, Wade Franson. We're here with Avonley Lightstone, and she was just telling us about the circumstances that developed in the family that had adopted her in Utah with the 14 children on the ranch, and just how the dysfunction began to become incredibly toxic and some of the things that happened. So Avonley, what steps did you take, and at what point did you take those steps to sort of get out of that situation, and what happened next in your journey?
Yeah, so I didn't mention earlier, I was adopted into an LDS home. So during the times that I was struggling with a lot of the abuse and traumatic events, I leaned on God. And by leaning on God, I built this kind of relationship with him. And I knew like if I couldn't get the help that I needed, I could at least talk with him. And so I took the chance on God and I just talked to him because I didn't have anyone else. And I just prayed to him. I talked to him, and a lot of times that was a comfort. And there's many times that he protected me from like the abuse that could have been worse than it really was. And as I look back, I recognize how much he was really involved in my life.
What were some of the ways that you took stock of that or noticed that God was in fact there in all of these difficult, challenging, and to a degree horrible circumstances?
Well, there's times when, like for instance, when my mom was getting abusive, I don't know how to explain it, but it was almost like God shielded me. There's times where I would like go in and out of walking by her and she wouldn't see me. And so I would be able to, like grab some food and she wouldn't see me. Other times she would get after me. So yeah, those are times where I recognized like, hey, God really was there. And he really does shield us at times when we might be in fear, Because yeah, when I saw my mom, I like panicked and I just booked it, but she didn't see me. And so yeah, that was just like a little bit of um, things that where I recognized that, hey, you know what, God really does exist, and I really did take a chance on him. I'm really glad I did. As I got out of graduated from high school and I went to college, I recognized how my behavior was like I compared to my peers. I was super shy, vulnerable, skittish, always insensitive in a way of trying to like almost like people pleasing because I just didn't want to make anyone unhappy, but I also didn't know how to um, react or just be normal because I never was able to be normal. So it was just really hard to understand that. And then seeing other people that had really good like family lifestyle, they would go back home during holidays and they were really excited. Their families were excited. Their families would come and pick them up at times. And you could see like a bond that they had. And at that moment, I realized that I had a lot of internal damages and a lot of work to be done. I then later went on a date with my husband, and we ended up getting married. And it was
And
at that
where did you two meet?
in Utah. So I was going to school at Utah Valley University, and he just came back from his mission, and we, got us the same job, like a school job at the same place, and yeah, when we got married, and I got pregnant fairly quickly, I was super angry with God because I did not want to be a mother that fast, and I I wanted to wait until I had a degree. I had just establishments like a foundation set down where I can properly raise my children. But I got pregnant like 5 months after, and I was super angry. But it was in that moment where I started doing a lot of self-reflection on myself because I knew like motherly instinct was kicking in and I wanted to be the best mother for my child. But the only mother I knew was my adopted mother and how she treated me. And I definitely didn't want that. I didn't want to pass that on to my child. So I started praying because a lot of like emotions would come up, and I knew that I needed to like tackle a lot of this down so then I can give my children the best version so I'm not like passing this traumatic event onto my children. So yeah, I started doing a lot of self healing, writing I guess like letters to my mother of how angry I was. Started journaling about everything that was happening, just kind of like purging a lot of things out onto paper or onto like Google Docs, just like purging things out. And I would start reading self-help books that would uplift my soul and changing the way I talked about myself, self-sabotaging. Um, like words have power. When we say negative things, they become a reality. And I recognize like there was a lot of self-sabotaging that I was doing to myself, which was unnecessary. So I had to switch things around. And during that healing moment, I had the courage to go through forgiveness process. And that forgiveness process was really a unique thing that isn't like one fits all. It's it's uh it's a relationship where you talk with God and God works with you. And in my case, I had to go and talk with my mom and let her know and warn her about the direction she was going. For the longest time, I thought forgiveness was, I'm sorry. Now you say you're sorry for what what you've done. But it's not like that. Like, forgiveness goes on your own term. Like, just because I'm ready to forgive my mom, she's not ready to forgive me. And her process is going to look completely different from mine. But yeah, I told her, like, hey, this is what's happening. I need to figure out how to move forward. And I just kept approaching her, and she just refused. She didn't care. And I told her, like, look, there's going to be a great division in the family, and it's not going to look pretty. But I'm willing to, like, not hold what happened against you in the past. Let's just move forward. And she wasn't she wasn't going to take that. And I didn't quite understand why. Like, this is easy. Like, you don't have to do anything. Like, we can all just start being this big, nice family and move forward. But she had her own issues, and I've had a lot of, like, suicidal thoughts, even when I was little, even when I was married. It would, like, what I went through was really haunting me, and I had those suicidal tendencies. And I just asked God, like, I can't take care of this anymore. Like, I can't have this be my burden. And he said, no, I think what you've done was the right way. Now give your burdens to me. Like, you did what you could, and you did everything that I've asked you, and I give that to me. So I was, like, so happy. I'm like, really? So I did give my burdens to him, because I knew that I wouldn't ever have a relationship with my family. And I felt like I left my past in a way where I put effort in, a positive effort. And once I gave that burden to God, and he asked me, like, hey, just talk to me as if I was your mother. Tell me, like, what do you envision your mother to be like for you? Now, see me as that. Come to me with those exciting news, or, like, the hard times, come to me with those. So I did. I started seeing God as, like, that mother I wish I had, and I gave my burdens to him. And in those moments, I didn't have any suicidal tendencies anymore. He lifted it all away. So when I looked back, I didn't see that what I went through it was like he was using my story as a testimony. And in those darkest time where I was healing, I was isolated. I didn't have any sort of help from anyone. And I'm reminded that, hey, God wants us to be isolated at times. He wants us to, and the reason why he wants us to be isolated is because he can completely focus on us and without any kind of distraction. And in those times when we're isolated, we also need to remember that the adversary is going to see us and see that we're weak. Just like a predator is patiently waiting for a weak prey to come and attack. Same with us during the times when we are in traumatic events and we're sad, lonely. It is during those times when the adversary is waiting for us to be weak that he starts whispering self-sabotaging thoughts into our minds, telling us we're not good enough, we're not going to succeed, you're deserving of what you went through. And then you start accumulating thought patterns that are not healthy. And so during those moments, we need to also realize when God isolates us, he's telling us that he's the only one that can go into the darkness, and the darkness cannot comprehend him.
I'd like to just quickly reference for the audience a passage of scripture. It's actually in the book of Hosea, the prophet Hosea. I was just talking actually about this particular prophet with somebody here recently in one of these interviews. But Hosea was actually asked to marry a prostitute by God. And Hosea's experience was related to him understanding about the relationship that God had with Israel and how Israel was behaving. But then he talked in the book of Hosea, it's this time where God will be reconciled with Israel, or Israel will be reconciled with God. And he says, after all these troubles and all these trials and this separation and the horrors that would happen through that separation, he says, therefore, I'm going to lead her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. And then I will give her back those things that she lost. And I will make the valley of Akka a door of hope. And she will respond as in the days of her youth when she came out of Egypt and when she declared that God was her husband. So this is the passage that came to mind when you talked about that isolation and how, we might be weak and possibly a prey, but God wants to reestablish that pure, that true relationship during a time like that. This is just what came to mind.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I think no, there's so many passages in the scripture that's so relatable, and what you said, it is so relatable. And a lot of it's a refinement process too, because during the time when we're isolated, God is refining us. Even during those times when we don't feel like he's around, what he's doing, he's refining us. He is making us purge out what is harming us. He's trying to kill off those impurities, and you got to have heat with that to kill the impurities, and heat can be painful. And as people describe what traumatic events that they go through, can be a description of hell. And hell is not pleasant. It doesn't taste really good. It's not beautiful. There's so many ways to describe hell, and it's not something that you don't want to be part of. But God is taking you out of hell. And as he's taking you out of hell, you are I guess you're going back and resurfacing what you've been through. And you kind of have to go through that and recognize, and reminded that you went through that. And you got to call on strength and trust the process, because you kind of have to go through that. You got to purge a lot of the past that you went through out. You got to burn that up.
Yep. So we're going to go to another quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about how perhaps the writing of your book was that for you, and what the reaction is to that book, and what's next for you, Avonley. Yeah. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more of Avonley Lightstone here on Created in the Image of God.
Every child deserves a place where they feel seen, safe, and supported. Those who guide children also carry the responsibility to protect them. Written by 2 legal experts with over 60 years of experience, this essential resource helps organizations build strong child protection policies, recognize risks, train the right people, and respond when it matters most. From schools to churches to mentoring programs, this is a blueprint for real protection, made practical, sustainable, and clear. Protecting other people's children. A powerful tool for those who choose to care. Available now at Amazon.
Welcome back to Created in the Image of God. We're going to conclude this show today with a discussion of the book Strength of Scars by Avonley Lightstone. So what was the writing process like? You talked earlier about a phase of even having to purge certain things and just get them out when you began to journal, when you began to write. Tell us a little bit about that process of writing that book and what it meant, and then the results of it.
Yeah, so I didn't so writing the book wasn't actually hard. It was when I finally felt like God wanted me to write my story. And I didn't want to do that. I actually was like totally against it. I'm like, I'm very I'm an introvert, and I also like to be I don't like to let other people know about what I went through. So it's very vulnerable, and I was not very comfortable with bringing a lot of that out. I told God, like, I left that behind. I went through that process. I left it behind. Like, why do I need to like bring that back up? I'm fine. I can move forward with my life. I don't want to write that book. And he clearly said it wasn't for me. It was for some other people. He told me, like, I healed you and you're doing okay. You're able to handle your traumas easier. Why can you not use your story to help somebody else? And that just kind of got me, because I went through so much, a lot of tears, a lot of heartaches, sadness. And I knew, like, God really did deliver me. And it would be very selfish of me if I didn't write this book, if it could help somebody else. So I told God, like, I don't know how to start. I don't know where to start. And he's like, I'll just go back to those documents that you written when you were angry. Let's, start there. So I did. The letters that I wrote to my mother, I never had sent them to her. It was really for me, and that was really healing. So I started writing, and usually he would wake me up early in the morning, like 2, 3 in the morning. He would like wake me up with this, okay, you need to start writing. So I would start writing. And I think it was because he was there with me, and he would just like give me the words to write. And I would just write. And during the daytime, I have a harder time because I get distracted. And so he just knew exactly when he was willing, like what would work for me, where he could help me out. So he would, and I love my sleep. So waking up really early was a miracle in many ways, because I have to have my sleep. I have to have at least 8 hours of sleep every day, or I just don't do too well. And so he would just wake me up really early in the morning, and I would just write a lot. And I think I just let him tell me how to write it. And as I was writing it, he would just start giving me ideas. Okay, this is going to be your next part, next part. And that's how I wrote it. I just let God guide me. And really, he's the author of the book. I'm just the co-author. And he's just using my story as a testimony, just like he can use anybody's story as their testimony.
That's wonderful. And I can relate. I've had my share of trauma, as my audience knows. There was a childhood kidnapping, separated from both parents, a lot of other things. I lived in a tent in Alaska for 10 months to get through my senior year of high school. There's a lot. And my experience was very similar with that whole early morning thing, waking up with just this urge to write and the need to write, and knowing that it was coming from outside myself. And similar to you, I would get sick if I would lose too much sleep. But here I was up writing, and it was at the time when our daughter was 2, and there was a lot of sort of lack of sleep during that time. But the work got done because God wanted it to get done. So what has the reaction been to that book by those who have read it, both people who knew you, such as your family, and those who didn't? What has the experience been of having that book out there?
Yeah, so you don't ever tell your plans to God. This is one thing I've learned, is never tell your plans to God, because he just laughs. Like, it doesn't always work out.
Right. If you want to make God laugh, tell him you have a plan.
Yes, exactly. So I told him, I said, look, I don't want my family to know about this book. At least give me 2 years before they find out. And I published it in May, and somebody in my town found out about my book. Well, she saw a picture of me, and she just clicked on it, and then it just, boom, everybody knows about it. And it was not, my mom isn't happy about it. Some of my siblings that are on my mom's side are not happy about it, and they're trying to find ways to legally hurt me in that aspect. But I just gave that up to God. But the cool thing about having that unleash is there's people that have reached out to me in my hometown that my brother had raped them too, and that was continuing. And they were like, hey, thank you so much for writing the story. Your brother did this to me, and nobody would believe me. Your mom fabricated a lot of stories, so nobody would believe me. And so with what you had written, I believe you, and there's a lot of support from a lot of us. So that was really sad to hear that she was a victim of that. But also it's rewarding knowing that I was being a voice for someone else too. I've gotten my sister. I hadn't told my sister I wrote this book, the one that had a hard time. When I gave her my book, she was in tears, and she started reading it. She was being healed. She's like, I don't know what it is, but I think God is healing me through your book, and the way you said it. And she's always suppressed a lot of her memories because she was angry and bitter about what had happened. But now she's seeing the transformation, and she's taking a lot of that power back, and she's growing so much from it. And so I'm seeing a lot of positive things that are coming from it. A lot of people are just thanking me for even writing that story, even though it's so vulnerable. It's relatable in so many ways. There's a piece in my story where people can relate to, because every single person has traumas in their life or scars, whether it's internal or external. We all have scars in our life. That's why I titled the book Strength of Scars, because every single person has scars. Even the perfect man has scars, and he shows his scars to us. And his story is still living and is spreading. And so we kind of mimic God's behavior. And so we shouldn't shy away from our story. We need to show the stories and the trauma and what we got there, because that is what makes us, builds us, it strengthens us, and it becomes a testimony, and it can help inspire other people. So yeah, I do get a lot of people thanking me, appreciating the book, enjoying the book. And it's just, I don't know. I just told God, if it can help one person, I'll do it. And it's helped more than one person. So it's been great.
And what about your father, the relationship with him? Is he still alive? Because you mentioned that he was a good man and you enjoyed working with him before certain things happened that began to prevent that.
Yeah. So my dad had passed away during COVID. And for a long time after I got out of high school, after I got married, had a few kids, my mom and I started talking to my mom about what she was doing and the direction we needed to go. She started keeping my dad from reaching out to us, talking to us, having a relationship with us, and we weren't able to go see him. And so we never really could have a relationship with him. But yeah, no, he passed away.
And so you mentioned the pregnancy with the first daughter, and the transformation that came, but you mentioned you have multiple children now. So how many children do you have?
I have 3 girls total.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe this is a good point to conclude on, given all the trials and the trauma and your express intent to be different despite your experiences, to with the assistance of God and the divine, be a different kind of mother. How's that going for you as a result of, all this situation? Is that difficult at times? Is it easy for you
Yeah.
with the help of God? How is that working out?
So when I was first raising my kids, it was really difficult because I didn't get any help. I was literally alone, like raising my kids. My kids didn't have any grandparents that would take them, so they missed out on like quality time with grandparents that could have enjoyed them, and that was really hard for me. But at the same time, I knew like there's a reason why those things were happening, and it makes my children more grateful for what they have, especially when they see other parents, other kids having grandparents, and how they wish they had that. But I think the parenting part has been really well for me because I just focus on God. All I see is I have the standard of what I want my kids to be like, but I need to make sure I'm that way first, so then I can be that beacon, that example, because we lead by example, not control. And as you start leading by example, like you start seeing like those hard phases where you think like, oh, your kids are not going to understand. It's so difficult. But eventually there's that turning point when they've experienced certain situations in their life and they look back and they say, oh my gosh, Mom, you're right. Like you're not this weird mother that it's not going to give me my phone, like give me a phone so early, like there's a reason why you did this. And they start seeing the blessings. And when they start seeing that blessing, then it makes you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm glad I stuck with that, even though it was really hard. So there's a lot of good things that came with it when you just focus on raising your kids alongside with God.
Well, Avonley, it's been just a delight listening to your story and interacting here with you, for the audience, just to bring that out. It's truly been an honor and a pleasure to have you here. We're at the end of the time. What are the last words you'd like to leave with the audience today after sharing all this?
Oh, thank you so much, Wade. It's been a pleasure being on your show. I would lead with hope. There's always hope. And when there's hope, there's changes. So believe that things can happen good in your life when you allow hope to flicker, because things will blossom.
Wonderful. So, and I'm assuming that anyone that wants to pick up a copy of Strength of Scars can get that on Amazon or other online bookstores, or probably even walk into a bookstore and order it if they want it.
Yeah. Yep. The easiest probably will be Amazon.
Yeah. Strength of Scars by Avonley Lightstone.
And if you want like a free copy of like my first 2 chapters to kind of get a sneak peek, you can just go to my website, avonleylightstone.com, and get a couple of chapters for free to see if it's something you really want to go into.
Perfect. And Avonley, we see your name there on the screen, but Lightstone is just like it sounds, right? Light and stone, one word.
Yep.
.com. Well, thank you so much. There's nothing left for us to do today other than share the sneak peek of next week's show. But before we do that, in signing off, let me remind you, you are created in the image of God, and God loves his creation. Avonley, thank you for being here today. And for everybody else, stay tuned for the sneak peek. We'll see you next week at 7 a.m. Central.
Thank you so much.
here in the studio with Tom Crottenmaker. And Tom is a writer and commentator on religion in public life with a series or several award-winning acclaimed books with Christianity. Welcome to the studio, Tom.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be with you, Wade. Thanks for inviting me. Let listeners know that in more recent years, I've been focusing more on secular values, a positive articulation of secular life, how that relates to the natural world, which I think is a really important and unrealized source of meaning and purpose and ethical guidance for secular people, but frankly, for everyone. In the final pages of my Secular Jesus Follower book, there are aspects of the world that disappoint me so much and frustrate me. And one thing that is compelling about Jesus to me is the way that his way and his teachings address those disappointments and finds creative solutions to those. But speaking of disappointing things, I hate it when people are incentivized to do bad things. And in this case, it's like you were saying, a kind of journalism or rhetoric that feeds off of polarization and that stokes anger and resentment and then benefits from it or monetizes it. I really hate that.